All right, today I'm very excited because this is the first attempt at recording audio and video for the new Clark's Room podcast. And the first person I wanted to talk to in this format was someone I've known for one of the longest people I've known since I've lived in Sacramento, and he's an educator and he's awesome. So I'm really excited to welcome my good friend Alejo. Alejo, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Great to see your face, though I have to say I'm a little mad every time I see you, which is infrequently. You look better and I look older.
And I'm much older than you, though.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Yeah, we're not going to tell people about that. Thank you for coming on and being a guinea pig for this new revamped podcast / video going on here.
That's right.
So I guess the first thing I always ask people, you're a teacher. That's why you're on my podcast. But what are you teaching right now? Where do you teach?
Well, I'm a Spanish teacher at the Elk Grove Unified School District.
Mm-hmm.
I teach the newest high school they have here is called Consumers Oaks High School.
Yeah, it's a beautiful school.
I'm also it is brand new school, and it's like started in 2008,
mm-hmm.
and I started with them in 2008.
Yeah. So I know your story. Obviously, I'm having you on my podcast because I think your story is awesome. What was your journey to becoming a teacher in America? Because I know that was a long journey for you. I know I remember parts of those journeys. So could you kind of start back, just give a quick synopsis of, your growing up and then get into when you came to America and your journey becoming a teacher? Because I think it's awesome.
Prior to coming to the U.S., I was a teacher for like 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
My first year of teaching was in 1995. But I used to be a PE teacher,
mm-hmm.
which is very different, but allowed me to connect with my students. That was in Costa Rica, because I'm from Costa Rica, born and raised. But it just gave me a different perspective, right? I can connect. You'll be teachers, right? It's their favorite class for a lot of
mm-hmm.
People, a lot of students. And then in 2002, because I married this wonderful woman from the U.S., that actually she put this picture, right? She said, "Oh, you have no problem finding a job in the States. That you're a teacher, you can speak Spanish. It would be so easy for you. Let's move to the U.S." So here we go. Now I'm in the U.S. and I have to bring all the paperwork stuff like that, right? To become a teacher, because she says, like, "Oh, that will be so easy for you." Well, it was not. The road to get your credential clear in the state of California is like a long and big process. So that from being, it's gonna be so easy for you, then it was not that easy, but it's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
To be a teacher.
So I think this to be true. I think you left out a part when you guys moved here. Which, first of all, you did marry an amazing woman. You married up just like I did. I did. When you moved here, you didn't know very much English, did you?
Well, I knew. Well, I came here thinking that I can survive, right? Like, I can have a conversation with you, but I can see your face when you're talking to me, and I can communicate with you. We can get, we can understand each other. But then my wife will take me to these like social gatherings where everybody was speaking at the same time, changing topics, like in 1 second to the other, we're talking about a topic. My brain would get on fire and I would just have to go and take a break, and I would just disappear. And when my wife knew that where's Alejo? She knew that I was just taking a break because my brain was on fire, like trying to understand. So, yes, I knew something. I knew some, right? But obviously by living here and having to use the English to survive, I actually went to language school in Pasadena when we first moved here. So it's been a long process, but obviously your listening comprehension skills start getting better. Then you start understanding. So it makes it easier until now you have to go to the real world where you kind of like have to use this academic like language to interact with
Yeah,
professionals and
yeah.
colleagues and stuff like that, and that's a different story.
So you went through the process to get your credential, and then what happened during that process?
So so here we go, right? I introduced, because I don't know if you guys know that, but in the US there's a database of all universities around the
Mm-hmm.
world. So once you bring your paperwork, they say like, oh yeah, we have your university, it has a good ranking. You present all your paperwork. These are the classes you need to
Mm-hmm.
take in order to get your credential clear. Obviously, when I get my credential, I get my credential for PE. But for every PE job out there, there was like 4 or 5 Spanish teaching
Yeah.
positions. So, and I was trying to clear it for my PE, go like, oh, well, maybe I will like try to go into the Spanish
Mm-hmm.
world, right? And try to teach that. But at the same time, I have to get a job. Like, I'm not going to be here, like, just like, I don't know, being at
Yeah.
home. So I got my first job at Mary Hill Elementary School.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And
I
then I
remember
go,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And I go there, and they actually consider Spanish like it
An
was
elective.
not a real, yeah, not a real class. It was more like an
Mm-hmm.
elective, right? And they never had a Spanish teacher before, and now all of a sudden I interview and that, oh, this would be great. And then you're gonna be teaching from pre-K all the way to fifth grade, uh, twice a week. We have no curriculum, we have nothing, you have to do
Yeah.
everything. But I needed a job, and dude, it's like they couldn't have. I was making like minimum
Mm-hmm.
wage for that first year of working as a teacher, but so I became the Spanish teacher. I became the milk deliverer because I have to push the little cart, deliver
Yeah.
the milk
Yeah.
in every
Yeah.
class. I have to do yard duty because in order for me to be have a full-time job, I was paid by hour. I was
Yeah.
not
Mm-hmm.
being paid as a teacher. So after I teach my classes, I will have to go and do yard duty with the yard supervisors. And believe it or not, that was an amazing experience because I learned so much English from my little
Yeah. Yeah.
students. When I interact with them during yard supervision, they tell me.
That's awesome. Um, and then how I don't remember. I mean, I kind of remember, but I don't exactly remember. How did you end up getting into Elk Grove?
So it's funny because finally I get my credential clear after
Mm-hmm.
like 2 or 3 years, because
Mm-hmm.
I taught 2 years at Mary Hill, and I taught 2 years at Lutheran High School, right? Because I was like, oh, I need to go back to high school
Yeah.
because I was a high school teacher before. So in the middle of that, I got my credential clear, and somebody told me like, hey, why don't you try to clear in Spanish? Okay, what do I have to do? Oh, all you have to do is pass these C sets. Yeah, the C sets in the Spanish.
Yeah.
What is that? Well, you have to take three tests that you prove to the state of California that you are, fluent, that
Yeah.
you can, you're not Spanish and you can do that. So I start preparing myself. I read a lot about Latin American and Spanish, like literature, about grammar, and I went, took the test, passed, and out of a sudden it's like, whoa, your credential is clear in Spanish. So in 2007, I started like trying to find jobs, but I used to live in a Thomas. We used to be neighbors.
That's right.
So I said, okay, why not here? So I actually, my first interview was in Intercom High School,
Mm-hmm.
and I got hired. But at the same time, I went going to interviews in Elk Grove, and I got a job in Elk Grove where I used to coach soccer. So now their dilemma is like, what am I gonna
Yeah.
do? And they ended up calling me, and I said, oh, I really wanna teach in Elk Grove because they say the school district was very good, but also like I used to coach soccer before I start teaching in Elk Grove, so I won't have to move. And we ended up moving from
Yeah.
Thomas to Elk Grove. So everything was like, okay, I gotta stay here. And then that's how I ended up having my first job in Elk Grove High School in 2007.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
I mean, this could be not a hard question, but do you think the process of getting your credential moved over and cleared, there were a lot of steps and hoops and it was hard. Do you think it should be easier, or do you think it was too hard or just the right amount? Like, we don't want just anyone teaching, right? But at the same time, we don't want too many hoops. I mean, I've had to do some credentialing jumping as well, being a career tech ed teacher. Did you feel that process was too much, or do you think it was okay?
Well, I had I have a huge amount of credits. I find out that for the U.S. and for all these process for the California Teaching Commission credential, it's more about the credits you have taken than what is your title, right? So I found very logical that I had to take some classes that will help me to understand how everything works in the U.S., right? So for example, I took U.S. Constitution. I knew nothing about the U.S. Constitution. So I started taking a U.S. Constitution class, and I learned a lot, right? I freaked out, but I learned a lot, and I passed. That was the first one. And then the special ed, right? Because I didn't have any of those classes. But it was good to know that as a teacher in the U.S., they are, it's more like an inclusive program where you can have students in your class that might have extra help, right? Might have to be some curriculum modified, and you have to be able to help them. And I didn't have that experience, so that was good. So I think it was the necessary like classes, but for me it was great because at the end I was going from private sector, right? And the funny thing is, like, I go to the school district and I go like, okay, so you have worked like 4 years in the private institutions in the U.S. Yeah, we won't be able to recognize those because those are private, but hey, here it says that you worked 9 years in the public sector in Costa Rica. We will recognize those years. And I go, oh, that's great. And then they say, hey, we see that you have I have like 65 credits for journalism in Costa Rica. And I go like, oh, we're going to recognize those too. And then they are believing, like, I start like going up and up in the salary scale. And I go like, wow, I feel like I was a millionaire, right? I mean, teachers complain they don't make a lot of money, but I was like, what? I was very excited, but I think it's necessary just because they want to be sure that yes, you were a teacher in a different country, but sometimes things don't work in the same way. But I gotta say that after I went through that process, I feel like you are recognized, which in other countries, even though you might have a master in education, but because he was not from the same country where you were teaching, you might have to start from the bottom, and I didn't have to do that here, so I'm very pleased.
Yeah, and that's a great perspective, because I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, like I complain, like every 5 years I have to pay, a couple $100 to renew my credential, and I'm like, this is silly. But at the same time, we do forget that there's a lot of benefits to that as well, right? And sometimes we complain, but we forget about the benefits. Yeah. So you've been teaching Spanish for quite a few years now, from teaching PE in Costa Rica to Spanish in suburban Sacramento area. What's your favorite part of teaching?
I got to tell you something, like my three passions in life, right? I mean, obviously, besides God and my family, is to be a teacher, right? And then soccer. And then my third passion is obviously is Costa Rica, the place that I call my motherland, where I was born and raised until I was like 32, right? So I love what I do now because I was able to combine the three of them, right? Because I was able to coach soccer and teach Spanish at the same school, right? But at the same time, I was able in my class to be able to share with my students my culture. So it's a different, if you can imagine, right? If I'm like, I can be teaching German, but I'm not German. I didn't grow up in German. I just know how to speak German. So I'm going to teach you how to speak German, but I cannot like share with you what it means to be a German. So for me, it's like, and now I can share with my students what it means to be a Latino. And remember, there's all these perceptions and all these misunderstandings, or it might be all these stereotypes about what it means to be a Latino, or if maybe they feel like all Latinos are from the
Yeah.
same place. And like I have parents looking at me, right, the way I look, and they were like, oh wow, so you are Mr. Murillo. Like I was not
Yeah.
expecting you. I was expecting,
Yeah.
I was expecting, somebody that looks different than me. And then they go, but when I see you talking, then I was threw off. I didn't know, like, a guy like you that looks white with blue eyes can speak with the
Yeah.
Latino
Yeah.
accent. And they're like, well, yeah. I mean, a lot of my Costa Rican friends look just
Mhm.
like me. So then you can teach that, right? You can be a teacher, but you can help the students to understand the
Yeah.
Hispanics. You can understand why we are in the way we are, why we speak the way
Mhm.
we speak, right? Why we are so touchy, why we are so
Yeah.
loud. Like, you can tell, like, I'm loud because that's. So that's what I love about being in a classroom, being able to share with them not just the Spanish, but also my
Yeah.
culture, and also my passion for the best
Yeah.
sport in the world.
Well, I mean, language without the cultural background isn't language, right? Our language is so much framed by the culture that it's spoken in. And I even remember hanging out, oh my gosh, 2004, 2005, when you were just learning the culture, and you would, there might be a group of us, and you would stop us and go, you just said this. What does that mean? And everyone in that room except you knew what it meant, because it was a cultural reference and you didn't understand it. And once we explained it, then you would laugh. We're like, oh, that's awesome. And for language students at the high school level to get that part of it, I think without that part of it, they're missing. The hard thing is, it's hard to find people from other countries that want to be teachers, and then not everybody's cut out to be a teacher. And so I think there's a little bit of, man, at Consumnes Oaks, they're a little bit lucky to have you. And I know you're a great teacher, because that culture side means so much.
Yeah, I still see, like, I remember, like, I still tell my students, right? Um, there's so many things I have learned by being in the U.S. For example, I never heard the word like politically correct. That was an English term that I learned in the States, right? Politically
Yeah.
correctness. But then I am with all of you. I bet you don't remember this, but so I grew up cracking jokes that were very politically incorrect in the U.S. But where I'm come from, I mean, everybody will know jokes
It's a
about,
joke. Yeah.
certain race from the Middle East, because we have this stereotype that all people from that, they're kind of like
Yeah.
stingy, right? And I came here, and I'm trying to. I mean, I was struggling to try to adapt, right? To try to belong. And when we're in that group together, here I am trying to expose myself, telling this joke about, a certain. I mean, I'm gonna say this. Like, it was,
Wait.
it was a joke
Pedo de
about.
leche? Is that where you're going? Is that
No.
where you're going?
No.
Okay, I was gonna guess.
No.
I was trying to guess.
You
Yeah,
remember
of course
that?
I remember
You
that.
remember how I hated
Yeah.
that? But anyways, I'm telling you joke about that I grew up telling jokes all the time about, and after I tell the joke, all of you are like, "What the heck?" Because it was a joke about
Yeah.
youth, right? About youth, and I go like, "Whoa, we don't." It's like, "Oh, these people don't have a sense of humor." And then with the years, it's like, "Dude, you don't do that." It's like that. It's like very politically
Yeah.
incorrect to say that, but I didn't
Mhm.
know, right? And that's the learning process of, okay, this is who we are. For example, we cut lines, like Latino
Mhm.
people. I mean, we cut you off. Like, if I can take advantage of you, and I cut you off
Yeah.
in line, and I mean, we will do it, right? But then you're learning that people are here more respectful about stuff like that. So is this process of learning, but that's what you try to explain to
Yeah.
students, right? That's the way we are, the way we are
Mhm.
raised, right? So it's been interesting. I have the privilege to take in two different groups of students to
Mhm.
Costa Rica in these 8 years, and they just love to be able to not just learn the language, but to be able to live with a Costa Rican
Mhm.
family and actually try to put in practice what they have learned. but also see how different we are in terms of, oh,
Yeah.
wow. Because I tell my students, I think we are a lucky country. I mean, talking about being a teacher in Costa Rica or being a teacher in the US is like we are so
Yeah.
privileged. Like we have so many things, right? So they were able to see how other students learn and they go like, oh, wow. I mean, we have this and we have that and we
Yeah.
have all these extracurricular activities, but you guys basically just go to school to learn and then go home.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely interesting talking to people from different countries because we are lucky in America, but I also think we complain because we don't realize how lucky we are, right? You know, I'm guilty of it too, you know, but you know, oh, my TV and my iPad and my computer won't all connect and I'm really mad. And I'm like, and I get mad too because a lot of times I get called in to try to fix that. But we don't realize what a luxury to have those three things. And the problem is they're just not connecting, right? And there's pros and cons because I think sometimes, and this happens not just in education, but in a lot of areas where those people that have less than, or it seems more primitive, even though it may not be, they're more thankful and they buy in more to what's going on. You know, so I know I've talked to students from other countries and they're like, I was just so thankful to be able to go to school that I would never throw that opportunity away. You wouldn't see a student sitting there messing around, not learning because they know what a great opportunity that is, where I think sometimes we forget that we're pretty lucky to have the opportunities we have for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Even like the basic things. What do you think is the basic thing a teacher needs in their classroom?
For me, like now, I should say now, no classroom doesn't have a teacher computer, a teacher projector, or a teacher TV, right? That would be unheard of.
Right.
That wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Just a computer. And I came to the States and I come to start teaching. I go like, what? There's a computer in every single classroom? And there's a TV monitor? And then we have all those, you know, projectors that, you know, the transparency that you can. That was unheard of. But then with all the resources we have here, like, I mean, it cannot get better. So I was very pleased. Once I get my credential, I was very pleased that, you know, I get to do this. And honestly, it's like, and I have more time off and being able to, I mean, I just love it. It's just like I said, you have to, it's like our pastor says sometimes, he said like, you need to get out of America. So you get America out of you. Like we have so many good things here, but because we're always here, we take everything for granted, right? And it's not until you actually go to other places, third world countries, right? Then you say like, oh man, we are very like lucky to have everything we have.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Okay. So I typically end with this question for most people I talk to, and the answers are like, they go all over the place. So I love this question. Let's say that there's someone comes to you and says, hey, Alejo, I'm going to give you power, unlimited resources, whatever you need. You can do one thing in education. You can make one big change. You can, you know, whatever you say, we're going to make happen to improve education. What would that be? What would you do? What would be your one thing?
Since I'm a Spanish teacher, right? I will do bilingual education. I will start teaching all American kids second language, no matter what language it is, since they are in kindergarten, to expand their worldview, right? So their perception of the world will be much different because it's not just us. It's like, wow, I can speak Cantonese, I can speak Spanish, I can speak French or other. It's like, so it's like by literacy, right? By education. So that give that opportunity to kids from the get-go.
I think we're one of the only countries that doesn't do that, right? And that's a little bit telling as well, right? So no, that's awesome, man. Thanks so much for connecting. I think we need to get together and play some ping pong sometime soon.
Hey, Joe, I gotta show you something. You probably don't remember.
Oh, is this podcast safe? Are we good? All right. Okay. All right.
And you're gonna get a kick of it because it became relevant just like in the last 3 months.
All right. I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Yeah.
You ready? Let's see if you can see it.
It's super blurry because your blur is on. Wait, I
oh
see.
no!
Oh,
Let's see.
that's when you became a citizen, huh? America.
Who made this for me?
Did I make that for you?
I made
that for you. It's phenomenal. That's the greatest piece of art I've ever seen in my life.
No, of course, you being the tech guy you always being, you Photoshop this picture and put it in on the body of, what is this guy called?
I think that was Borat.
Borat, and then you put Alejo, cultural learnings of America make benefit glorious nation of Costa Rica. America, very nice.
Right. All right, man. Thank you so much. Have a great day.